So you've had that magical first summer riding mountain bikes. You maybe got yourself a hardtail, something with 24, 27 speeds, something like that. You know you're in love with riding bikes now, so it's time to step it up and take things a little bit more seriously. What's the sort of minimum that you're going to need to get the right experience out there and to not feel like you spent a bunch of money but still need to upgrade a bunch? I'm going to show you a bike that I think is a really good option for that. It is the 2021 Marin Hawk Hill 2. So this is the Marin 2021 Hawk Hill 2. This is what I think is kind of a perfect step up after you've fallen in love with mountain biking. You've tried it on a hardtail, you've gone to the trails, you realize that there's a difference in comfort and confidence, as you've seen from those around you riding on their full suspensions. So it's time to step it up to that first full suspension bike. And you want to spend your money wisely. You don't want to kind of overspend. You also don't want to underspend though and end up with something where you still feel this sort of burning need to upgrade something. This guy basically does all the stuff that you sort of need to get, basically to give yourself the best chance of really enjoying riding mountain bikes on proper mountain bike trails without overspending. So we'll show you what those main features are that make this a great option, and we'll also even show you, so this guy here, just to start with, it's a 2021 Hawk Hill 2. It's based on 27.5 inch wheels. It's got 120 millimeters of rear travel and 130 millimeter travel fork. And in Canada, it is $26.99. Now what Marin does that's interesting is they also offer a thing called a Rift Zone 2. And this is essentially the same bike, same price, but on 29 inch wheels. So I've already done a review on that guy, which if I can figure out the technology behind it, I'll put a link above here. But everything that I say about the Hawk Hill applies to that guy too. So back to the Hawk Hill 2. What makes this thing a great bike if you've decided you love riding and you want to get a first full suspension bike? I would say it comes down to a few things. Drivetrain, brakes, getting a dropper seat post, proper air suspension, that's rear shock and fork, and then just in general, the bike having the proper shape, its geometry, so that it's going to give you the best chance of a bike that climbs well and descends well. That is pretty much, in my mind, that's the definition of a trail bike. It is equal parts climber and descender. So here's the specs on this guy. We have a Shimano Dior 1x12 drivetrain. So 1 being a single front chainring there. We've got a 32 tooth FSA Comet narrow wide Dior 12 speed. That cassette goes from 10 teeth on the small end all the way up to 51 teeth. That is what allows us to get the full range of gears on a bike without having a front derailleur. Another nice detail on this is that chainstay protector. That is both stopping your chainstay from getting all chipped up from the chain. It's also going to quieten things down. Your chain, even with a clutch rear derailleur, is going to bounce around, and yeah, that guy's going to protect and keep the noise down. That clutch I was talking about, that is this little lever here. So any of the better quality Shimano derailleurs designed for a 1x drivetrain will have that. The idea is when the clutch is on, that is a very pronounced spring, and that is helping to keep your chain from bouncing off. So in combination with those narrow wide chain rings, which have very, very complete long tooth profiles, and that narrow wide is about the fact that their teeth vary between a narrow and a wide teeth to match up with the inner and outer links of a chain. That is going to give you a solid drivetrain with tons of gears. The reason they give you an off switch for this is so if you have to change your tube on a rear tire, you're not going to be battling all of that tension. Tires on this bike, 27.5 by 2.35 V tire flow snap. They're a tubeless ready tire, but they're set up out of the box with tubes, which is quite a common feature. Just showing you the kind of tread profile. This is what would be considered a pretty aggressive tire. So it doesn't roll super fast, but it gives you excellent grip, excellent cornering, excellent braking, all that sort of stuff. So I've seen in some reviews that they talk about maybe wanting to switch out, especially the rear tire, to something lighter and faster rolling. As mentioned, we've got a tubeless ready tire. To set that up tubeless, you would just need to purchase a tubeless valve to replace that thing that's attached to the tube in there, and some sealant, and maybe get a shop to do it so they can use a compressor. Those other features I talked about that makes this a great bike for the money, that rear shock, it's an air shock, you have rebound control. Those offer the two major things I would say that you need for a rear shock to work well. The air means that whether you're 120 or 190 pounds, you can change the air pressure so that you're sitting the right amount into your travel when you ride the bike. And then the rebound is how quickly that bounces back. So after you set your air pressure, you adjust your rebound so that the shock comes back in a controlled manner, not like an uncontrolled spring, but also not like it's slowly sort of bouncing back. This is the X-Fusion seat post. I think that a dropper seat post these days is just part of a good mountain bike, and it really helps you to ride with the right sort of technique. Makes things safer, more enjoyable. In the case of this bike here, and a size small, it's a 125 millimeter drop. Medium and large has a 150 millimeter or 6 inches, and then a size extra large would have a 170 millimeter drop. So that's the amount that the post can drop. We have a pretty nice color, I think, in this case, with the blue and the yellow. Room for a water bottle cage on here. The distinctive Marin gusset. This allows that top tube to be a little bit lower to give you a little bit of extra standover height. Our fork, once again, like the rear shock, it is an air fork. It's a RockShox Recon. That is where you fill your air. So once again, to match up with your body weight, you change the air pressure. After you've done that, you adjust your rebound down there, and then they do give you a quick adjustment with that knob right there for your compression, which is basically a lockout, which I personally don't see much value in lockouts, but whatever, that's just me. The tire on the front is the same as on the rear, that V tire flow snap. We have Thru-Axles on the fork and on the frame. A Thru-Axle basically gives you a stronger setup than an old quick release style axle. We have Shimano MT201, so relatively simple but also a pretty good hydraulic disc brake. There's the brake caliper down there. We have Centerlock rotors. So Centerlock is just the way that that attaches onto the hub, that rotor. Show you, we've got internal cable routing. So the cables go inside the frame there, come out down there, and then we have one that comes up into the seat tube. That is to operate the dropper seat post. The other one going to the rear brake. This bike is considered a single pivot bike. It is what Marin calls their MultiTrac suspension design. That is the one pivot. Its placement is what sort of provides for a really efficient pedaling bike. So that is kind of an important thing. On modern bikes, they seem to have figured out on single pivots how to make a really efficient riding bike, where that seemed to elude the bike manufacturers 6, 7, 8 years ago sort of thing. So it's a single pivot, pivots there, there's no other pivots before we get to the rear axle. It is considered a linkage driven single pivot. So we've got a pivot there, we come up to a pivot, this link that basically drives the shock vertically, giving us 120 millimeters of rear travel, and it's quite efficient pedaling, this guy. The rear end on this bike is 430 millimeters, so that's the distance from the center of your cranks to your rear axle. That's on the shorter end of things. That's what helps this bike to be a pretty nimble, agile sort of a bike. Nimble enough that there are some of the Marin athletes that will actually use small versions of this bike as slopestyle bikes. So they're actually using them to jump, do tricks, that sort of thing. It's also a testament to the bike's strength. Another testament to the bike's strength is the fact that it isn't light. It's 34.7 pounds, this one here, and this is a size large. 34.7 pounds, though it pedals pretty efficiently, so I wouldn't be too concerned about the weight. I mean, at this price point, your typical weights that you're going to see on bikes are going to be in the 33 to 35 pound range, so it sounds heavy, but the benefit of the suspension far outweighs the fact that this is, say, 4 pounds heavier than a $1,500 typical hardtail. So we have Marin cockpit here, their 35 millimeter long stem, 780 millimeter wide handlebars. It is not uncommon for us to be chopping these bars down, especially on size small and mediums, to say 740 to 760 millimeter width. Though we do usually advise people to try the wide bars for a little bit. There is some good riding technique reasons for wanting wide handlebars. So if somebody's coming from an old hardtail, say that has quite narrow handlebars, we do say give these a chance before you chop them down. Another thing to note, we do have down in there, that is a Shimano hub. Shimano hubs or much higher end hubs have to be used to be able to use this Dior 12-speed cassette on there. That's a nice thing because Shimano hubs tend to roll very, very nicely. And that's front and rear. And then for a last thing to talk about is just about geometry and fit of this bike. This bike has a 66.5 degree head tube angle, so that's slack but not too slack. That's the angle of the forks there. The seat tube angle is steep but not too steep at about 74.5 degrees, and that's average. The different sizes, that changes just a little bit. Reach numbers, 485 millimeters for an extra large, down to 425 millimeters for a small. This is one of the bikes in the Marin lineup. Like, I usually ride a large in a rift zone. In this bike, I would have to go with a size extra large, and I'm 6'1". So to give you an idea of our suggestions for sizing on these guys, a size small with that 425 millimeter reach, we'd probably say is going to be appropriate for somebody in the 5'2" to 5'5" range. The size medium with a 445 millimeter reach, 5'6" to 5'9", something like that. Size large with 465 millimeter reach, 5'9" to 6 feet tall, and then extra large, 6 foot to 6'2", something like that. And I would say that quite often by the time we're at larges, that's when that bike there, the rift zone, starts to be the more commonly chosen bike because it's a 29er. Though we do have a few people that test ride both and just like the nimble feel of 27.5 wheels and a little bit more compact frame. So that is the 2021 Marin Hawk Hill 2. So that was my little video for the 2021 Marin Hawk Hill 2. What do you guys think? What can we do to make these sort of videos more meaningful? What kind of questions do you have about bikes that you're looking for answers and you're not seeing from the rest of reviews out there? Do you want to see more details, less details? How can we help you if you're sitting at home and trying to do your research about what's going to be next for you for a bike? What can we do to make things easier for you? We're not looking to become YouTube stars or anything here. We're just trying to make it a little bit easier for people to sort of figure out this mountain bike and mountain bike buying thing. So please let us know. Like and subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff in the comments below. Like I say, we just want to hear from you. What can we do to give you more useful information? If you're interested, our shop is Bike Bros. We're in Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. Website www.bikebros.ca. We're here to help. Thank you.